There are many words that have come to define human history. Honor, loyalty, freedom. Guilty pleasure. Mass Effect Andromeda is a game that everybody hates. Number 1, Andromeda has one of the worst and most needlessly complex upgrade systems ever, where you gotta get materials for a weapon schematic, but after you made the schematic, then you gotta get more materials for the final weapon, which are also separated by different levels, and you can't upgrade the gun you've made. You have to completely make a brand new one if you want a higher level. So you can either waste loads of time and materials making a low level weapon, or invest way more hours into making a high level gun that you might not actually like, because in all of these stages it doesn't display something as simple as is it semi-automatic, automatic, or is what kind of fucking projectiles it fires. Number 2, all the characters are distractingly inversions of the Normandy crew. You got a street smart Turian, but now it's a girl, a young, sorry scientist, but is wacky as opposed to introverted, a grizzled Krogan veteran, but is the parent to a major Krogan political player as opposed to be it, etc. It's very transparent, and it actively strips away the game's sense of distinct identity. Number 3, the awful face animations and general poo-poo presentation. Number 4, simplified combat. You can only have 3 powers at any times now, as opposed to a whole power wheel, so it loses a lot of the tactical depth in every encounter. Number 5, you can't command your squad's powers, so it completely makes upgrading them pointless. Number 6, the Angarans and Ket aren't remotely exotic, so for a game about exploring the unknown frontier, they create an inappropriate atmosphere of familiarity. Number 7, there's no sense of pacing to the narrative structure. You meet the Ket immediately, but for some reason the exiles in Kadara are introduced so later on that for some reason they feel more like an escalation in the broader story flow. And why is the Asari arc stuffed in a loyalty mission? And it all leads to an ending that feels like a soft dun dun dun. Number 8, the biggest and most harmful design decision for me personally was the removal of the Paragon and Renegade system, which was binary and limited, but regardless was still extremely effective in A, giving value to the player's choice, because being nice had meaning since you can be rude and vice versa.
I signed on to make a little profit, a quick slave grab, nothing more.
That's reason enough for me.
Damn it.
B, it made Shepard into a thematic tool because to accumulate enough personality points to solve certain situations, you had to choose consistently. Therefore, Shepard wasn't just a player insert, but was a tool to author the themes with, because the consistency of your choices and how you got things done and what your Shepard believed in will determine what message the story will end up endorsing. So taking this system away dilutes the player's impact.
Your species has an indomitable will. A fierce, savage spirit that will not bend or yield.
Instead, the game went with a collection of tones, emotional ones, which is supposed to be more nuanced and varied, but now you can't be particularly rude or particularly heroic. The conversations are never written with extremes in mind, so nothing ever feels meaningful. All you can really do is just flirt and avoid taking hard stances. Great stuff there, great stuff.
What's this?
It's a handshake. We're partners now.
Partners and friends.
But as my usual contrarian self, I do actually have a soft spot for this game, even though I can't play it for more than 2 hours, cause I'll get mad. The list of poo-poo things stemmed directly from the game's poo-poo development. This wasn't made by the A team, who made the original trilogy, BioWare Edmonton, but the B team, BioWare Montreal, who then proceeded to have leadership issues constantly, as project leaders kept changing. The main friction from the game's development came from the desire to make a game about space exploration, like Mass Effect 1, but also to go in with procedurally generated worlds like No Man's Sky. However, how do you create an emotionally effective and complex story and characters when the world they exist in are all subject to change due to the randomized nature of the world itself? Additionally, they were also forced to use the Frostbite engine because EA was being a bunch of assholes. Consequently, it took from 2013 to the end of 2015 for their entire vision to be thrown down the toilet. As I quote from Jason Schreier's article, of course, almost every video game goes through some sort of scope change during development as designers and artists start sacrificing their babies in order to ship the game on time. But Andromeda was unusual. Typically, a massive rescope like this would have happened during pre-production, so the developers would have time to pivot and plan things out before starting to build the game. If there's one thing that should have happened in hindsight, the cuts that were made should have happened earlier, said one person who worked on the game, so there would have been less of them. I think in general, the team tried too hard to execute a game that was not doable, end quotes. Or quote, because like, that was a quote within a quote, whatever. Furthermore, the story was also in a poo-poo place because the writers spent such a long time discussing the broad concepts that by the time they had to write the actual storylines and plot, instead of having the full 5 years of development, they only had 2. As a result, here's another crazy quote. Most of Mass Effect Andromeda was made in just a year and a half. By those accounts, it really wasn't until Mac Walters came on board, and that was very much a reaction to the state of the critical path. He was really brought on board to give it direction and give it into shape, said one person who worked on the game. Before that, it was quite rudderless. Some at Montreal saw the directorial shift as Edmonton trying to take over the game, while some at Edmonton saw it as them needing to come in and rescue it. Nobody sets out to make something bad, apart from my videos, haha, yes. So I think it's important to be sympathetic towards Mass Effect Andromeda. It had the most horrible development time, and the most irritating thing about it is that there's glimpses of genuine magic that keeps me coming back years and years later. Despite the unoriginality of the characters, I adored hanging out with them, and the banter, which the original trilogy didn't really realize until Mass Effect 3. I especially loved sitting down and watching a film with the crew, seeing the first Krogan birth, even though it's technically off screen, seeing PB going from just wanting a physical relationship to an emotional one, from the initial sense of genuine desperation from the opening hours to the ending where everything comes crumbling down and the alliances you make comes to help you, even though it's also mostly off screen. So maybe I'm getting unnecessarily sentimental in my old age, but there is something here that rises above the valleys, making peaks of goodness, and I think it's worth replaying. No, actually, I don't think it's really worth replaying for anyone that isn't me, because I'm fucking weird. In fact, why did I even make this video?
Show me your soul. Baby, I'll show you mine. Show me your soul. Honey, it's way past time. How expensive do I have to be? Need I spell it out before you get it, baby?
So that was my Mass Effect Andromeda video. This was made entirely for fun and as an experiment to see how I can make a story just out of my feelings and information about the game's development. I hope it was interesting. I tried to make it quick and, I don't know, mildly entertaining. Anyways, special thanks to everyone on Patreon, and I'm off with some more videos. Bye-bye.
Sorry.
I think we're in the clear.
Maybe another kiss, just to be sure.
Now you're just teasing me.